All right. It looks like we are live. So, welcome everyone to the very second episode of Community Maker Interviews. And today I have as my guest two Make School students. We have with us today Aleia, who some of you may recognize from one of the other streams that we have coming up later today, Electric Vision Entertainment. Aleia is the host of that show. So we'll talk a little bit about that, but also focusing on some other projects that Aaliyah has been working on as a student at Make School. And then we also have Gary. Gary's joining us today. Very excited. Gary and I, we go back to Gary's first few days at Make School, so I'm excited to catch up and see what Gary's been working on and to share that out to the community. So really quick, just want to go through some formalities here. So we're streaming on Twitch, we're streaming on YouTube, we're streaming on Facebook. Please comment, like, share, follow, etc. If you have comments, you have questions for either of our guests today, pop them in the chat. No matter which platform you're on, I will see it and I will pass it on and make sure that we get your contributions included and help you help me interview our guests today. So what is the goal of this show? We want to show off amazing work from members of the community. It's not limited just to Make School students, but they are very close by and easy for me to get a hold of. But we also want to make sure that folks know you are invited to be a guest on this show. If you're interested in that opportunity, make sure to stay tuned. At the end, we'll be sharing links out with more information if you would like to apply to be a guest on this show to talk about the work that you have been doing. So that is enough from me. I would like to hand it over for some short introductions from each of you. And I will start with Aleia. I know Aleia is probably a little comfortable already with her introduction and her greeting of the live stream space. So Aleia, a little about yourself. Pretend like no one has ever seen your show before and you're just an everyday guest. Welcome.
I feel like I am an everyday guest. I'm just a person. So my name is Aaliyah Knight. I am a student at Make School, a senior, and I'm studying data science. Let's see what else about me. I'm a super space and robot nerd. So if you've had any interaction with me in the past, you'll know that like the thing I talk about the most. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about myself. I host Electric Vision Entertainment at Make School, so you can come check that out too.
Let's see. Yeah, and we already said both. You're a senior. Data science. Great. All right, Gary, how about yourself?
Sweet. Yeah. Hey, my name's Gary. I'm also a senior here at Make School. My concentration is back in engineering, so I mainly focus on kind of like architecture of APIs and services and things of that nature. I guess some like interests I have is just optimization. So like making things faster. I think that's something that I've spent most of my time in like one of my favorite teachers' classes, just making things faster and kind of competing with other students in my class and trying to see who can make something like run a little bit better than the next person. It's like, friendly competition is always really nice. So
So Gary, for those of us who aren't used to doing any kind of like speed or optimizations, is this like, are you in like the Kentucky Derby of computer programming? Are you like trying to code the fastest horse? Is that what's going on, or is it a little more complex than that?
It's a little more complex than that. So, I mean, you'll learn in a data structures class that there's trade-offs to anything that you build, depending on the the data structure that you use and the algorithm that you actually use as well too. So time optimization is one thing, but also space optimization is another thing as well too. So it's not just the race about, the speed, but it's the race about what is the most optimal solution for in particular, like the problem that you're having. So that's kind of what we're trying to tackle.
Sounds like we should have you on as a guest lecturer sometime to talk about time-space complexity in a different capacity than the way in which Aleia talked about time and space complexity, literally talking about space and time.
That's sick.
Awesome. Before we move further, I just realized, wait, we're not just programmers, right? We're humans. Where are you both from? What are a few hobbies outside of programming? And for Aleia, outside of space, it's inside space. We know everything is inside space, but apart from space, what are some of your other hobbies that are maybe totally related to anything technical?
Let's see. So I'm from a smaller town in Georgia called Fairburn. It's in South Atlanta though, so that's probably more familiar with people. Right now I'm in Arizona because I like the hot weather. It is like 80 outside right now or something like that, which is crazy because the other side of the country is like snowing. So it's wild to me. Um, so, and then things that I like to do, like I'm a big super nerd. So like I once again build robots in my free time, but I watch a lot of anime because it's great. I read books. I just got this one actually like an hour ago called Eating the Sun, which is about a lot of like philosophical university stuff.
Nice.
And then just exercising a lot, yoga, gardening, painting, all that like fun stuff. Gotta like mix the creativity with the technical side.
Nice. How about you, Gary?
Yeah, definitely probably not as many hobbies as Aaliyah. She seems like she has like does a lot of fun tasks. I'm more interested in kind of just relaxation. So I love sleep. I love just getting my sleep in. Um, I mean, outside of that as well too, I do love cold weather. So I love snowboarding. Um, I also skate as well too. So I mean, I've been snowboarding and skating since I was like 8 years old.
And remind us, where did you grow up? Are you from the cold, frigid north in Canada or Russia? Where are you finding all this snow that you're
Russia? That's fun. But yeah, so I originally I was born in New Orleans. So I mean, to go from somewhere that's
a lot of
hot,
snow there.
definitely a lot of snow in New Orleans. Yeah. But yeah, so coming from like the South, it's humid, it's hot. Like the change of weather was really nice, and then I kind of just fell in love with just like bundling up and wearing hoodies and stuff like that. And then I moved to California and picked up skateboarding, and then that kind of skill set translated into snowboarding as well too. So yeah, I just fell in love with it, and it's really peaceful. It's really quiet out in the mountains, and then you get to snuggle up under a warm blanket, drink hot cocoa, and fall asleep. So it's just like all of those things in one are just like my favorite. So
nice. Yeah. When it comes to the temperatures, I'm always a fan of, if it's cold outside, you can put more clothes on.
Exactly.
When it's hot outside, there's only so much you can do.
Yeah, I mean,
just be sad.
You can't walk around naked, So yeah, definitely.
Only in very limited locations.
Yeah, that's true.
My mom told me the same thing coming out here. I was like, you just get used to it. You wear thinner fabric and drink water.
Yep, exactly.
Awesome. Okay, so now I'm gonna see if we can tie some of these things in, our non-technical things, as we go down later. That's my challenge as a host, see if I can tie it all together. But let's dive in. So I want to hear about some cool projects that you two have been working on. So I will throw this in the air. Anyone ready to go first? Who's ready to get hit with the big questions? Ready to dive deep?
Let's do it.
Gary?
I'm ready.
All right, let's do it. All right, Gary. So let's go back a little bit to your early make school days, because I think it's important to give people the context before we talk about like what it is that you're building now. Is what were you building at the start of your coding journey? Do you remember what was the first coding project that you did? Maybe not like the very first one you did, but what was the first one you did that got you excited? That like, the kind of project where you like finish it, or like something works and you like jump out of your chair and you run around and you try to find somebody to high five and they don't know what you're talking about, but you're like, just give me a high five. It's really important. Like, what was that project for you?
Yeah. So I think it was probably in my backend web class, like it was like backend web 1.1. And we kind of just had to like build a project that connected from our server to like another API, and we used like some data, or like we kind of just used the API for some type of service. So I chose the Instagram API for whatever reason. I guess I really like Instagram, or back then at least I did. So then I basically built a kind of analytics tool. So it would pull down kind of like your followers, like who you're following, and then in relation to who they may be following, and kind of like, their neighbors in a sense. So then I used another like graph API that basically kind of built all of these things together. So then you would have this really pretty kind of like graph to see who's in your network, and it would just connect everyone and like how you actually follow that person, and who are they connected to, and etc. And you can like zoom in, zoom out on like, your following group and stuff like that. And it was just like so beautiful on how it was like integrated, even though it didn't really do much. It just showed you, it presented to you data in like a really pretty way. But it's just like, I was super excited to kind of build that. It was really hard working with it because the Instagram API is like kind of trash, but like like, I mean, they know this. They like discontinued it. Honestly, yeah, they know this.
Like, we are not throwing any shade here.
Yeah.
So we have not already thrown directly at the API developers. Okay.
They literally deprecated it because of like it wasn't the greatest. But yeah, no shade to Instagram. They're doing great work. But yeah, I mean, it was just really tough working with kind of a cryptic type of language when there wasn't great documentation on it and things of that nature. So
now I want again, just to clarify, right? You're using big words. You're talking about API, you're talking about working with graphs, right? Mm-hmm. How far in your programming journey were you when you got to this project? Like 1 month in? Because again, like I think when you describe it, like it sounds technical, and that doesn't mean that it wasn't, but was it technical and hard, but like a beginner project, or was this like an intermediate level thing?
Yeah, it was definitely kind of intermediate. I had a little bit of knowledge of programming coming in, like, I know how to create variables and things of that nature. I wasn't like a protege or anything like that. But it was definitely intermediate because I always like wanted to kind of push myself to learn more things. And it maybe took, a really long time to actually implement. But I got help from my teachers and then my friends as well too, to kind of lead me in the right direction to actually build this out.
Do you want to give a more specific shout out? I think you mentioned earlier, like your favorite teacher. Was this with your favorite teacher?
At the time,
teacher?
So for like the optimization and stuff that I was talking about earlier, that's with one of my favorite teachers who left, Alan. But my backend web class for 1.1 was with Meredith. And yeah, she taught me a great deal, a lot about kind of API architecture and things of that nature. So yeah, kudos to her.
Awesome. So you're focused as a backend developer now. It sounds like those were some of your early like moments with playing with the backend, right? Because for people who don't know, can you give us like what's a 3-sentence short paragraph description of like what does it mean when you say you work on the back end?
Yeah.
Where in the code are you? What would like an end user interact with that you had coded?
Okay, so the easiest explanation, the non-pretty stuff. So kind of like a analogy is, I don't know if anyone's ever knitted, but like when you knit, there's like two sides to kind of like a fabric, right? There's like the pretty side of the knit, and then there's the stitches usually on the back. So the back end is pretty much like that. The back end is literally all of the kind of interlocks of how
all right, I've got a visual aid together for you. So I have my Make School hoodie.
Yep,
right?
There you go.
It's embroidered, right? So it says Make School. So this is the front end. And then, as everyone knows, when you look at the inside of how they did it, you can see the back end. It's like the same data is there, but it like nobody made it pretty, right?
Exactly.
It's just there. Okay, great. I really like that analogy. I haven't heard it before, so I think that's a really great way to describe it, because I think everyone's familiar with it. Like, there's something behind what I see.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Awesome. So let's catch ourselves up here to the kinds of projects that so that was like a year ago ish. So let's fast forward a year and talk about what are some of the things that you've built since then. And we chatted a little bit before the show, and I'm always interested in how programmers like to optimize their development practice, because for anyone who is a developer knows, right, the least fun part of a project is setting it up unless you're in DevOps and that's what you love, in which case we love you, we need you, please come be my DevOps support. But if you're like me and many other programmers, you maybe don't enjoy the like kind of setup process of the start of a project. So
Yeah.
how have you addressed that, Gary? How do you deal
Yeah.
with this?
So definitely. So coming like only with back-end engineering experience, I didn't work with a lot of front-end, the pretty side of things, right? On how or the side of what people actually see. So for me, I built like a tool that would kind of like speed up my development time for front-end sites, right? Like I'm not great at building websites or kind of like mobile applications are in that sense. So I just built a tool that would kind of clone websites for me. That would set up my front end work. Let's say if I wanted to build like an Instagram clone or something like that, I could basically just clone an Instagram page and then start building out the back end communication of how that actually works. So then, yeah.
You're gonna show us what this
Sure.
looks like, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
definitely.
ready for. I think myself and the audience, we're ready. We want to see something.
Cool.
Gary. Show us. Show us what you've done.
Cool. So yeah, I'll just share my screen here, I guess.
Yep.
Cool. Sweet. All right, just making sure you can see that.
Yeah, the screen is a little wide. Can you share maybe a less? I can tell you're on a very wide screen.
Yes, I am. All right.
There we go.
Let's
maybe just like share the tab or the browser. Yeah.
Yep. Got it. Okay.
There we go. Awesome. Yep.
Sweet. Okay. So
can we get like a quick plus just again make it a little bit bigger for the audience?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Sorry.
And I'll drop the link to this in chat at the same time, so anybody can check it out.
Cool. So yeah, I mean, this is just the like front-facing website of the tool. There's some documentation on it and things of that nature. But you know, as soon as you go to the page, it's literally just telling you how you would actually use the tool. The tool is called Go Clone. You'd basically enter this in your terminal, and then you would just put in the website that you actually want to clone. It'll grab all of the CSS, JavaScript images and things of that nature, and then it'll just mock it on your actual local machine. So now that you have that code, and you can start doing development on the backside of it if you want to. Like if it's a kind of a SaaS tool that you're building, then this would just be the front-facing site. So yeah, I can go through like how you install it. 2 simple commands. It's just through brew, and then yeah, there's some docs and whatnot. But I'll take you to the GitHub repository. I guess let's see.
Now, before you move on too quickly, so I see like just a few easy commands. I see you're using brew.
Yep.
So I've used brew. Many programmers. Aleia, have you used brew for anything?
I have, but it's been a while.
Yeah.
So it's basically a not really a platform. It's a system for pulling in updates to libraries and things like that.
Yeah, you can just say it's a package manager.
It's a package manager. Now, because this is a big one that people have heard of, I'm actually really curious to hear, what did it take for you to get your package available within their package management system? Because that's something that's new to me. Was there a process that you go through? Is this like Android? Is this like an open source free-for-all?
Yeah.
What was that part of the experience like?
Yeah, so I think that part was actually pretty straightforward. One of my friends actually wrote an article about it on how simple actually it is. You can just use a tool as well to get your projects or like your CLI tools up onto Brew. Literally also 2 commands. And then from there, I mean, I think like managing it on GitHub is a little more complex, but if you read through my friend's article, he kind of like explains through all of that. And I was really lucky to kind of have him actually write that out for one of the Go classes that we're in together. So that was really fun. But yeah, so I mean, it would have been more difficult if I didn't have this article, but definitely shout out to my friend Ben for helping, like, I think everyone out in writing that article. We were like, definitely a lot of people were impressed with that. So sweet.
Is that Make School student Ben that
Yes, yeah, it is. Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna pencil Ben in on my list of targets to get on this show.
Sweet.
Bring Ben on and talk about some of that stuff they've done. So Yeah, well, thank you for talking about that, right? Because I think
Mhm.
again, that's one of the things. Like, this is a tool that nearly every programmer at some point in their life will touch, and it's actually not too hard to contribute directly to
Yep,
content that other people can use. So like that
exactly.
that I think is another great takeaway for me from this project is that you can make a tool that helps you, and with like how much more effort? Like, you made the tool for yourself. What was the
Mhm.
extra amount of effort it took to share that to everyone else?
Um, let's see. I mean, probably just as long as the article is, or the amount of time it took to read the article and actually get it set up, right? I mean, um, it was, yeah, I mean, it's difficult like searching on the web to actually how to to kind of push your tool to brew. Um, but when you have someone who's giving you a clear and concise example of how he's doing it in his use case, and then you can just translate into your own use case, definitely really helpful and kind of like sped up the process a bunch. So yeah,
Awesome. Now, I think you were about to take us to the GitHub.
yeah,
I
definitely,
would love to see some of the internals. We maybe won't dive like super deep, but again,
yeah.
let's do a skim.
Yeah, sure. So basically everything's written in Golang. I don't want to dive too deep into like Go routines and all that stuff, but um, the reason why it's like really fast is because let's say if we have like a shopping list, right? Basically it would take you really long to grab each item when you're going to the grocery store for that long shopping list, right? But now, say if you take your friend to the grocery store and you split up those tasks on the shopping list, you guys can all get items faster and then bring them into your cart. So that's kind of like what's happening here. A website has a bunch of different resources like images, CSS, JavaScript, HTML. So what coroutines are doing in this case, it's just saying, all right, let's split up the task. You go grab kind of like this part of the web assets, you go grab the other part of the web assets, and we'll all come together and then merge and combine all of those things together. And that's what kind of just makes this tool really fast and really easy to use as well too, because it's just a CLI command.
Are we multi-threading?
Exactly. So Go routines is so it's its own kind of like, how would you explain it? So yeah, Go routines are like threads, but it's not the same as threads. Go routines run in your own computer or in the Go runtime, whereas threads actually run on your machine and have their own PIDs. So they are kind of similar. So yeah, you can say that this is multi-threading.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So there's always the technical definition. Is there a generic term for multi-threading? Right? It's
Yeah,
parallel.
concurrency.
Yeah, concurrency.
Yeah, concurrency or parallelism. Yeah, you
You are
can't have.
passing the test, right? So, all those recruiters out there, pay attention. Gary knows the answers.
Yeah, you can't have parallelism without concurrency,
Mhm.
but you can have concurrency without parallelism because they're definitely two different things. Concurrency is just saying I can switch between tasks really fast, whereas parallelism saying I'm doing more than one task at the same time. And in this case, this actually is parallelism. So I'm basically splitting up those tasks between a worker pool of Go routines. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Awesome.
good catch.
And let's see. I don't know if I hit you with too hard of questions. Do you want to show us any of the code? Are there any pieces of the code that you are particularly proud of, or that maybe were the pieces that you struggled the most with, either because there was a bug there, or like implementation wise, maybe it was more of a challenge to figure out the right thing to do?
Yeah, let's see. I think it's probably, yeah, okay. So I think figuring out exactly where the files actually live. So I have to use regex for that.
Ooh,
I
regex.
yeah, I
All
think
right,
that
everyone
was
in
the
chat, type
hardest.
your favorite regex search command in chat, and we'll compare.
So like you get this like blanket of HTML, or it's just like a string of text, right? That's just what HTML is.
Mhm.
And then you have to figure out exactly where the CSS, where the JavaScript is in this long string of text. So I have to do parsing via just regex to look for that, because people name their files differently, but at the end of the day, all these files are going to be having the same file extensions.
Mhm.
So yeah, there's
And
a little.
Can we get a plus on the
Sure.
size of the screen here as well? Let's see. Aleia, can you read that? I've got old eyes. I don't think I can read that. So.
I'll zoom in more. Sure.
Great. Okay, I can start to see the text now. Mostly just want to make sure that it's big enough for people viewing the video later.
Yeah, so I don't think this is the right, let's see. I think it should be somewhere in here. Yeah, okay. So yeah, here's like a little bit of the regex patterns. This is something that you can do with an HTML parser. So I literally just find script and source. And then I basically kind of, yeah, I was like, okay, what's the best pattern for finding like images? So every image has a source kind of attribute that precedes it, right? And then after that, we find everything that precedes after the source equals attribute, and then we're like, all right, just grab everything, and then we'll set that as the file name, pretty much. Probably not the best regex pattern, but like, you know, I'm not the best at regex. There's people who kind of like study this and who can come up with great patterns, but
like there's like people with PhDs in regex.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I mean, it works to some extent, but I definitely want to improve it. So it's, you know, it's not the best right now. I'm still working on it. A couple other people are also working on this too. But yeah, I mean, it's really interesting to kind of see how, like, I just had this idea in one of my classes, and then that translated into this really big project. So,
and it actually sounds like this kind of project really beyond just building a website, this project has forced you to evaluate and sort of dissect websites in general, right? Like, because you have to understand everything to pull the pieces out.
Definitely.
Now, other people may be familiar with this term, so I'm curious, is your project a scraper?
Yeah, it actually is. So it's a web scraper. I mean, in simplest terms, that's kind of exactly, where is it? I call it a crawler, but scraper and crawler are interchangeable. So it basically just crawls a site and collects all of the attributes that you're seeing. And then it does the regex pattern matching over the HTML. So
do you feel like you are following in the footsteps of the great search engine creators with your website crawling capabilities here? Are you ready to become the next Google? What have you learned about websites that nobody else knows yet, Gary?
I think there's definitely a lot of knowledge behind websites. I don't know everything there is to a websites, but I know just enough to just, you know, set up a request to crawl them and then pull out certain web assets that I just need. I'm no Google or anything like that for my crawler, but definitely, you know, maybe in the future I could build something like that. But as of right now, this is very rudimentary, just scraper / crawler.
So baby step taken. You've got that one out of the way, so you're ready to take the next step whenever you're ready.
Definitely.
How many times have you used your own project so far, or how many users do you have? Are you the only user? Are your classmates using this tool?
I don't know anything about my classmates using it, but I mean, right now the project has 125 stars, which is nice. I know a lot of people are forking it too, and probably also going to start contributing to it. I personally use it a lot because, again, I'm only a backend developer. I do like building front end, but it's just like usually I don't really have the time for it, so I'll just clone a site. So yeah, the site GoClone actually lives on, I used GoClone 4. So I mean, I literally scraped the site from somewhere and like changed it around a lot to like make it my own. But yeah, it was like kind of a template that you can find online.
Meta is
definitely
what I'm hearing.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, great. I would love, so I shared the link in the Twitch chat. Twitch chat is ephemeral, so I will try to remind all of us later to drop any other links to your projects or demos, your GitHub, the live site. We'll pop those in Discord after the show so anyone else can come and check those out. It looks super clean, super useful.
Sweet.
Thanks so much for taking us a little bit into the tech.
Sweet.
And not that we're done talking to you, but what would you give as a piece of advice to somebody else, like, or actually, let's make it more specific. Yourself 2 years ago. So before Make School, maybe even
Mhm.
before your first time coding, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to yourself 2 years ago to encourage you to explore computer science, or that you can do stuff in computer science? What kind of
Mhm.
message would have been the message that you would have benefited from 2 years ago?
Yeah. Um, I guess 2 years ago, I was looking at things in a more kind of um, like just kind of one way and not from kind of how do I from a different or a bunch of different perspectives. So I guess my advice would be, let's see, you don't have to build like a really great product, just build something that you actually like and enjoy building.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's something like 2 years ago, I was building products, to kind of like make good things for other people to use, but good products actually come out for things that you actually want to use for yourself and that you enjoy and you like. And then eventually people are actually going to come along and see if, they like it as well, or if they have a use case. And then if you enjoy building something as well, like you're going to build it well. So, if you're not enjoying a place that you're working, you're probably not going to produce your best work, right? Um, so products that are always built with like passion are definitely better than any other products that's just built just because, right? And I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I guess there's like a saying in it, right? These cookies are like built with love, in a sense, right? So if you're building a product with your heart and your passion, it's definitely going to be it's definitely going to show, right? So that's some advice I would give myself like 2 years ago.
Awesome. So 2 years ago, the young Gary, if the young Gary didn't already have any programming experience, it sounds right now that you have a passion for back end.
Yep.
What was your passion for before it was about back end, right? Like,
Mhm.
as in your early stages, was there something that like lured you in, and then you were like, back end?
Yeah, definitely. I think security is kind of like what lured me in. You can't have back-end engineering without, or you can't have security without back-end engineering,
I was like,
or
you
maybe
can
vice
definitely
versa.
have a back end
Yeah,
without security. That
yeah,
has
yeah,
been
definitely.
proven.
Yeah, definitely. But so I mean, I was always interested in how, like kind of like movies and things like that, how people just hack into and break into things or whatnot, or kind of like stop other hackers from attacking. And like, in Hollywood, it's really kind of like hyped up a lot. But like there's still some good movies out there. I mean, I love The Matrix, right? I think everyone loves The Matrix, but that's kind of like one of those movies that's like hyped up about tech.
Mhm.
But I think just falling in love with the idea of how computers actually communicate, how we actually communicate with them, um, is like what led me into just wanting to understand more about the complexities and architecture of like servers and APIs and things of that nature. So that's kind of what just led me more into backend engineering, because there are some really great systems and um, designs of how certain systems are actually working. Like Google is not just a program, right? It's an intricate kind of like solution built with a bunch of different servers working together to perform what we call the Google search engine. And it's like, it's insane to think that most people only see it as like software. It's actually a lot of hardware that goes into that tool too.
And
Um,
beneath the hardware, we know there are a lot of hamsters on little wheels.
Definitely.
It doesn't run without the hamsters. There's so many layers to the tech stack. People always stop before we talk about the hamsters because we don't want to think about it, but they're there.
Yep. Yeah. The little gophers.
um, awesome. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that insight, because I think that's also, for myself, as an engineer now, I feel like I'm familiar with different things. But yeah, when I was starting out, I also was like, there's programming and not programming. Like, what are the options? Yeah, so I think it's really great to share sort of how you found your way into the world of programming, and then once you're in the environment and seeing all the options, sort of how you found your way to back end. Now, it seems like a good time to pivot. We just talked about how Gary got into back end, discovered his love for that. So Aaliyah, I'd love to
Sweet.
shine the spotlight or the stars, the starlight on you now, and ask you, when you were first getting into programming, before you knew maybe what all of the possibilities were, what was maybe like the core that caught your interest, that led you, that like got you to open the door?
Well, I've always been, yeah, I've more or less always been in tech or in some sort of science and math combination. Um, but I've never been just a programmer until make school because, I went to I was studying robotics before, and when I coded, it wasn't just like on the computer. Like I would usually code stuff like this. Let me put it up.
Ooh, yeah. All right, now hit us with the details. Like that doesn't look like an Arduino to me, is it? Is it Arduino, different brand?
Um, so I have a Raspberry Pi. This is a different brand. It's still a Uno, so it's still running. The board model looks about the same. It's using the same chip in it. So it's basically an Arduino, but it just goes under a different name.
So where did you encounter your first breadboard?
Oof, oof. The first one like this was at the first tech school I went to. Before that though, my very first one was probably like middle school, sixth grade or so. We were doing like Lego Mindstorms.
Okay, cool.
Which is, I always tell people when they're going into robotics, like go start there, most likely. Probably the best way to get in. But yeah, so I did stuff like this because I was like, if I'm going to program something, I want it to do something. And
So you want to see the thing that you're making. Gary's like, I don't care. And Aaliyah's like, I want to see the lights, the shiny thing.
I need to see that it actually can do something with what I type in. So the first school I went to, I was very, there was a lot of just computer science students who just coded. And I always thought to myself, I could never be that person who just sits at the computer all day and types in stuff just to get more letters and numbers out and not actually have a physical version of anything. I was like, I could never.
Called out, Gary?
I mean, just a little.
I think that's the important thing, though, is that there are different spaces in the world of computer science for people that can feel very differently, even about the shared activity of programming. So, yeah, I think it's great, right? You can have a passion for those text, number, digits, things flying across the screen and the speed that they do it at. That's important. But we also need the Aaliyahs of the world to get the robots and the lights flashing and walking around, right?
Literally. So, yeah, that's the main thing. But then there hit a point right before make school when I was realizing that in order to get better at robotics, I had to get better at each individual aspect of it. So I needed to learn software, I needed to learn hardware, and I needed to learn electronics. And so I was like, well, I can learn the electronics and hardware myself on the side. But for software, since I didn't have much experience with just coding, I'll just go to school for it. And now I'm definitely, I do typically prefer working with my robots. However, I'm definitely more the person now where I could sit for days straight just coding just to get more numbers out. So it's evolved, but ultimately I've chose data science because I wanted to learn machine learning and AI so that I could put that into my robots.
Awesome. And so what I hear from you, Aleia, is you kind of had a vision for what you wanted to accomplish already, and you basically you did an assessment of your skills that you already had. You were like, check, that one's in progress, like I've got exposure to that one, and then you got down to software engineering. And I'm gonna look directly into the camera and be like, I love that you figured out what you needed to learn and then you chased it down. Can you tell me a little bit more about, like, because it's not trivial actually that you did that. Like, let's all just acknowledge that, because most people, when they want to do something and it's not instant and they don't already have the skills, they stop and they get discouraged. So I'm curious, I want to dive just a little bit more into that moment or that pivot point for you? Like, where did you get, like, were there people that inspired you? How did you sort of have that passion and drive to know that you could overcome it, and that it was as simple as creating a list and checking things off?
Oh, it's deep. Overarchingly, in general, in terms of like just going for stuff, I'm of this mindset that you really can do whatever you want in life. Mostly just because of the time that we live in. If times have been different, then that might be a different thing. But the times we live in, if you really want to do something, there's a way for it to become possible. So, and I have the, as I always say, who's going to stop me? So nobody stopped me yet. So I might as well keep going.
I wish I had a sound clip for that. Like, more advanced streamers would be like, let's go to the "Who's gonna stop me now?" like things flashing on the screen, because I think that's such a great catchphrase. Who's gonna stop me? I love it. Gary, does "Who's gonna stop me," does that resonate with you in any way?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like, I'm my own person. I don't think anyone's gonna like tell me otherwise to like something if I want to do something, right? So
We didn't
yeah.
stop you from putting that bear up. What was that bear? Was that something? I am curious.
Okay. So yeah, I was in Discord with my friends, and they're talking about, or well, one of my friends is like, I'm flexing with the Twitch background. I'm like, dude, like no one even knows anything. Like it's just a background.
Get out of that chat. They're supposed to be chatting on Twitch.
Yeah, exactly. So then I was like,
you tell them